So here we are back in Blender, and this is from the scene we had previous, right? We had the animation where the leg lifts and the head expands, and that was pretty cool, right? What we want to do here is we want to actually create an independent animation for both the head and the leg and combine them in the editor, in UE4 or in Unity, so that we can create facial animations or expressions while the character is moving or walking or doing other things. That's what we want. So how do we do this? We're going to create a separate file for each animation. This is just the way I found that works pretty well. So if you're having an animation of let's say a frown or a smile or a guy punching, a guy walking, just have a separate file for each one, and that way it stays nice and independent and clean, because there's some issues with how this kind of exports with the NLA editor and naming and stuff. I find this is the best way to do it. So what do we want to do? We actually want to go back to the previous version of this that has no animation on it. We could easily delete it from here, but let's just start fresh. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and then we're going to go to the rigging and go to Rig 04. Hopefully you have a save of this. And this is just the guy with no animation, but he's raring to go to be animated. So what we're going to do first off is we're going to take the whole thing and we're going to grab him and go to File, Save As, and we're going to save him into the Animation Morph tab. So this is going to be Model, Animation, let's make it Animation Morph 01, and then we'll do Control-Shift-S, plus, and then a second one. Same thing again, we're going to save to another folder called Animation Bone. Model, Animation Morph, Animation Bone 01, save that, and do Control-Shift-S, plus, add another 2 on the end and hit Enter. I'm going to turn on my screencast key so you can see what I'm doing. And now we have two separate folders, each with a copy of that kind of base rig. And what we're going to do is we're going to animate the face in this one, and we're going to animate the body in this one. So let's go to the morph first, and we'll animate this. There's a couple little weird tricks to do, but it does. It's a little tricky once you get started, but it's not too bad, to be honest. So let's go ahead and get started here. Very similar to the other one. Let's go ahead and set the animation length to 50 frames. We'll hit Home on the keyboard. Then we'll bring over our dope sheet editor, and then we'll go to the let's say the dope sheet. We'll go into click on the rig, go to pose, and now we can see we got all our pose stuff here. Just always check that your rig is still attached correctly. Sometimes it breaks and you want to just use your old backup file. See the leg there is still hooked up to non-IK. We want the IK rig. Now that bone looks better. Okay, good. So we've got our model here all ready to go. We want to animate that morph shape. Let's go ahead and do it. So let's go down to here, Dope Sheet Editor, Shape Key. Select on the model. We'll go to Object Mode, and you see the head expand is right there. So that's the little value we have here that makes the guy's head expand. So what we can do is drag this back to 0, hit I on the keyboard, go to, let's say, 25, and then we'll go to, we'll do another keyframe here. We'll just do it at 1. And then we'll go to 50, and then we'll do I again, or I'm sorry, we could turn on auto keyframing. That would probably even work better. Let's just take it back down to 0. Click that little button there, and then whenever you make a change, it will automatically put a keyframe in. So now we've got this little 50 frame long animation, and he just kind of moves his head around a little bit. Just looking around here. One thing to be aware, you probably want to set it to 30 frames per second. There's no big deal if it's 24, you can always resample. Just something that came to mind, I just thought of. Anyway, we've got that set up, and we got the character animating. Looks fine. Good. So you think, okay, we're done. Just export this, right? Not quite. It's kind of a weird setup, but UE4 and I think Unity as well, I'm not sure about Unity, won't accept this animation as a morph animation unless we export it with some bone animation as well. But we don't want bone animation, right? We only want the morph. So how do we get around this? What we're going to do is basically we're just going to keyframe the body in this position, no movement at all, and then it'll just be doing nothing there, and then we'll remove it in Engine and replace it with the other animation. Pretty simple. So go to the body, go to Pose Mode, and grab everything. Go to the bone editor over here, and make sure you deselect the 2 deformation bones. It's not absolutely required, but it's just good. We only want to key the bones that are controlling stuff. So now we've got all these keys here. Go back to the dope sheet, and we'll just go back to frame 0, and we'll hit I on the keyboard, location or rotation, and that'll keyframe all these bones, and then we'll go all the way to the end of the animation we want, the final end, and we'll do location or rotation. Nothing moves except for that head. That's exactly what we want. So all this is just going to do is basically let the editor know, okay, there's animation here, but oh, there's no bone animation. Just do the morphs. Just do the morphs here, and we'll remove that ourselves. That's a requirement. That's kind of one of those tricky, weird things that you wouldn't expect. Cool. So now we've got that. Grab the whole thing again. Go up to File, go to Export, go to FBX, and we will use our Blender to Game Engine. We had no anim earlier, right? And let's go ahead and make a new preset, and we'll call it Animation. So what's on this preset? This is the Blender to Game Engine no anim. Under Main, selected objects, same as before. Z forward, armature mesh other. All this is the same. No modifiers applied, so blend shape keys don't get exported incorrectly. Face to face, armatures only deform bones. This is to root, no leaf bones. Animation, baked animation. We don't want these either. That way it just exports a global animation just to make it simple and so the naming isn't weird or there's extra little bits imported. And good to go. So let's name this as Blender to Game Engine with Anim, uppercase so we know. So now whenever we want to, we can just go to with Anim. Oh, okay, we're going to export animation, no animation. Very simple, right? So let's go ahead and export with our animation. We'll go to Export Test, and we'll do Model, Morph Anim. Just right there, that'll be it. And export to FBX. Now, like before, we're going to try and set up the same model as we had before, where we're going to have a base model that we import once that doesn't have any animation that these will all be applied to, and then we're going to have the Morph Anim, and we're going to have the Bone Anim applied to it. So let's export another copy with no animation. That way we have him to work off of. Don't have to delete him or mess him up whenever we're working with animation. So we'll just call this, this guy was just model with, this other one called model Morph Anim, right? Let's just call this model. It doesn't have anything really, just model. So we'll go down to this and we'll do no anim. Hit export FBX. Great. So now we have a model with the morph animation and we have a model with nothing, no animation whatsoever. Now we just need to do the bone animation. So let's just save this one more time. We'll do Control-Shift-S plus and make that a 3 there. Go ahead and open the bone animation. We'll open number 2 here. And let's do a quick little animation like we did before. 50 frames. Drag this guy over to here. Do a dope sheet. And we'll open this guy up. We'll just make sure the pose isn't broken, as always. Sometimes that just breaks and it kind of drives you nuts. So let's make sure he still is wanting to work for us. And IK is not there, so let's turn that on. Legs look good and nothing's broken. And that looks good. Okay. Object mode, or sorry, pose mode. And let's turn screencast keys again. And we can move that leg, right? So let's go ahead and hit home on here and home in the dope sheet. That way we have 50 range. And it could be any range. I mean, the animations don't have to be the same frame rate. They can be completely different frames, or probably even different frame rates, and they'll be fine. They'll just kind of loop at different intervals and do weird things. Or they won't do weird things, but it'll totally work if this is 1,000 frames and the head animation's 1 frame. That's fine. Within reason, of course. So let's animate this leg. Go to frame 0, and we'll turn on auto keyframing. We'll hit I and do location and rotation. Bring it to frame 25. We'll bring his leg nice and out a little bit. And we'll get him over to there. We'll do I, location and rotation. And we'll go to 50, and then we'll just do that Alt-RGS. Now, another thing, I think we'll just go ahead and keyframe all the other bones as well, just so we have some frames running on them, just to be safe. So we'll grab all of them except for these 2 bones, because those are deforming bones. We only want to control the control bones. Grab all of them and do a location rotation on them, and then go to the end and do a location and rotation on them. So now we just have keyframes on everything. That way they're just there. I'm not sure if that's absolutely required, but just to be on the safe side, good to have them in place and be consistent. So we got a little leg there that moves around. We can play it with that. And he moves his leg. Okay, good. Go ahead and grab everything. Go to File, Export, FBX, and then go down to Export Test, and we'll call this Model Bone Anim, because this is based on bones rather than a morph animation. Operator presets with animation, Blender Game Engine with animation. Same thing, we want to export a global animation with a similar name, and just a separate file for each animation. That way it's just nice and easy to work with, you know, as we said. And go ahead and export animation. Cool. And I will go ahead and click in here and do Control-Shift-S plus Now we have it saved as another little spot. Let's open up UE4. So let's delete out our previous model. So I'm going to go to open the level blueprint and delete that out, because that's kind of the stuff we had left from last time. Delete the model, and we'll go ahead and delete the animation, and we'll delete all three of these. Oops. That's okay. And we'll delete this. You can see it kind of messed up the model there for a second. And delete this. It won't want to accept it. Let's just quit out of UE4 and come back. Sometimes if you delete stuff in the wrong order, it'll mess up the kind of references. So if you do end up doing that and you delete stuff and it's giving you trouble, just restart the editor, and that will probably clean up whatever's getting messed up and mucked up in there, which is what I'm doing now. I try to delete those extra assets out. So okay, we got it nice and clean now. You see there's nothing there. The guy pops in, you can just delete him, and now he's clean. And so let's do just a right click, import the game, and let's do our model, FBX, with nothing on it. We do want to import our morph targets, but we want no animation. So click out of animations. I shouldn't import any anyway, but let's just be sure. Import. And we'll go ahead and open him up. You see he's got his morph target, and you see he's got his bones, and they are mapped one-to-one. There's not a lot of extra rotation to get this to look right. And if I go ahead and wiggle this a little bit, and then save, you see it'll save the animation. That little warning will go away. Hit 0. And there we go. We got a little guy. Okay, he's in the scene. He's the right scale. Perfect. Let's import our animations. So first one will be our morph anim. Once again, kind of a strange thing. It's a morph animation, morph target. It's not bound to the skeleton, but we can import it just using the skeleton and not the mesh. So we'll turn off the mesh, go to skeleton, go to model skeleton. That's the skeleton we have based on here, and do an import. Let's see how that looks. Head expands, but no leg movement. Exactly what we want. So you can see the curve here of the actual head. Cool. So we've got our animation for our morph in. Let's go ahead and import our bone animation. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's back out of that. Node all, and go to import animation, and we want bone animation. So this time we want import a skeletal, but no mesh as well, and we can go ahead and select the skeleton, model skeleton, and import. And we have his leg lifting. Perfect. So now we have two animations. You can see them down here if I save this. The head expand and the leg lift. Two separate animations. But how do we combine this in Engine? What if we want to have him talking while he's running, or his head expanding while he's running, for example, in this case? We can combine these with an animation blueprint. I'm just going to show you the basic kind of blending them together, but you can figure out further how to actually, script them and make them play certain ways. But this is just how to blend these two animations together and get them working in the engine. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So, what do we want? We want to create an animation blueprint. Just right-click and click that, and we want to create it based on the model skeleton. So we'll call this model animation BP blueprint. Double-click on that, and you get this little setup here. So this is showing you what's actually going to be animating, and this shows you the pose that comes out, what you all plug everything into. If we right-click and we type play, we'll see our two animations. We've got our bone animation, and we've got our morph animation. So we can just plug this right into there, and watch what happens. Head expands, morph animation, right? Or we can play the leg lift animation. But how do we combine these so that he can talk while he's running? It's pretty simple. There's a couple different ways. You can use these blend nodes, so you can just type in like blend, and there's all these different ways of blending things. But what we want is we want layered blend by bone. We'll just do blend. That should come up. I think I saw it before. Layered blend by bone. So we'll take the bone animation as the base pose, and we'll blend the morph animation on top of that and plug this in. Let's see what happens. Perfect. Got both happening at the same time, and they're not interfering with each other. Now normally you would select the bone, so this would be like you could make it so his torso has a separate animation from running. But in this case, since there's no bones that are attached to the morph animation, we just want to exclude all bones that there are. So if you go under layer setup, and here, there's nothing in here. So saying basically, don't just exclude all of the bones that are in that animation, and just use the what we have on top of that, which is just this. So that's how you do a separate animation for facial animation or morph targets and bone animation, and combine them in Engine. So that way you can animate a face or animate something while the character is running, which is great using morph targets. So that's how you do it in UE4. Let's go ahead and bring them into the scene. and set that up. So we've got them right there. You can do it a couple different ways, but we'll go ahead and do it. We'll just go ahead and drag this guy right into here, and you'll see that, boom, he plays. So you could set it up with, like your character. If you made a blueprint out of this character, you could have this animation blueprint sync into it, and based on if he's running, you could have something else play or different facial expressions. But this is just the basic way to get it in the engine, and there it is in the scene running as you go. So that's how you do it in UE4. Go ahead and save the scene, and now we're all set there. Let's go ahead and do it in Unity now. Okay, here we are in Unity. Delete our other assets out of the scene that we're not using, and we're going to import our different models. Import the base model. We've got that right there. Go ahead and go to Humanoid, go to Apply, and we'll click Configure. Just make sure everything's looking nice and pretty. Zoom in, looks good to me. Go ahead and select all these, see if you can still move around the screen. It's not too slow. Zoom in a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little laggy, but that's fine. And then we'll go to Muscles and Settings. And open and close, that looks good. And all the fingers seem mapped right. Looks good to me. Reset all that, and click Done. Animations, no animation for this base guy, and we can just set him right there. Let's delete this animation controller test. Cool. So we got our model in. Let's go ahead and import our bone, or do our morph animation. We click on the test. You can see his head expands. That looks good. We'll just do we'll label it head expand, and then we can hit apply. And there we go. Like I said, you can combine multiple animations into one scene, but this way is just safe and efficient because it just keeps everything nice and separate. And it's not too much extra data because only the animation inside here is what gets applied into it, even though you import the same model multiple times. And you can even uncheck all this extra stuff, like you don't import the materials multiple times to save on space. So that's all fine. Now we want to set our model morph anim to humanoid, and since it worked last time and it's the same mesh, we can just hit apply. And it should be configured correctly. Great. And now let's get our last animation into the scene. And that will be our bone animation. That comes in as a generic. We'll set it to humanoid, apply again, and our animation. How's that look? We'll just scroll this down a little bit and scroll this up a little bit. You see his leg lift right there. And we'll call this leg lift. Alright, that looks good to me. And the rig looked fine, right? I think I'll just hit apply there. And we got all our animations in. So now we can combine them. So let's drag our model into the scene. We'll put them at 0, 0, 0. And we'll turn them around so the camera can see them. And we'll move them forward. You can see them kind of coming into view at the bottom there. So how do we do it in Unity? You can do a couple different things. But the way we're going to do it is pretty much exactly the same as UE4. Go to Create, Animation Controller, and we'll call this Test Animation Controller. Cool. Open that guy up, and we're going to grab our two animations. We got the first one here, and we've got these two layers. Sorry, we want to grab the animations, so we just want to do this first. We got two layers. We got the base layer, and then we can create a second layer up here by clicking this. So one layer we want, much like the other one, we want one layer to be bone animation. So this is only for animations of the bones. And then that can be another one called, let's say, morph animations. So in the first one, we're going to have the leg lift in here, and we're just going to drag that in, and then we can just duplicate it and do the same thing just to make a simple forward and backward loop that just goes on forever. So if we save this and go back to the scene, and click on this guy, and now we can assign that test animation controller, and then we'll give it a second to start up. There he goes, his leg lifts, but no head animation because we haven't assigned that yet. Let's do that now. Go under Animator, Morph Animations, and we'll go under Model Morph Animation, Head Expand. Put that in the scene, and we'll create a duplicate of it with Control D, make transition, back and forth. Let's see what happens in the scene. Does anything go well? Nothing happens on the head. That's weird, right? Well, what happens is you can do the same thing you did in basically UE4. You can create one of these little avatar masks, and what these do is allow you to map out what bones that you want to have disabled, so you could have like animation only affecting the head or only affecting the arms, and then you can assign it right here. And then you go, okay, so I want this one to only affect the torso. Like if I wanted the torso to be separate from the walking animation so his arms wouldn't sway, you can do that. But since we don't have any bones that we want to use, we just want to have none basically, we just got to do a couple simple things. We're just going to go to weight up to 1 for the morph animation and additive, so it adds it on top of the mesh. So that means that this will have weight and it'll add on top of whatever's there. Let's see if it works. And there we go. We have an animation of the head and we have an animation of the leg that are completely independent and are to be recombined by layering systems inside of the animation system inside Unity. So that looks pretty good to me. Just give me 1 second here and we'll go back to what we're doing here. Just hit pause and let's see. So that's it. That's the end of this tutorial series. So we set up our project with all the correct scaling. We did point, I think it was what was it, metric 0.01. We used the let me get back to Unity here and we'll go to steps. Sorry about that. We set up our project with the correct scale and all that. We set up the project and we used Rigify. We got that ready to go, and that was good. We modeled our body. We did our hands, which took a little bit of time. We got it all set up. We UV unwrapped it. We textured our character. I'll show you how to just quickly import a texture. That's super easy. We rigged our character and we did some fixes. We used a Python script and that fixed some of the bones so they'd map correctly. And then we also used Vernocchi's fix that was from UE4 forms. We set up some morph targets. That way you can control them in Unity or UE4 directly with code. And then we created an animation in Blender using morph targets and animation. And we brought that in and that worked just fine. Then we also created 2 separate animations, one for the bones and one for morph. And finally, we combined them in an engine using layering and blending, avoiding some bones and including others. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to go over everything again, and like I said, I'll have all the stuff in the description. That should be pretty much it for this tutorial. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helped you out. And if you like this, feel free to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.